back to DIY with Fiona. So this week we are doing a 2020 DIY home decor trend. So this year we've been seeing a lot of DIY trends like tie-dyeing, creating a terracotta texture. So one of the trends we've been seeing is creating a faux ceramic texture on home decor pieces. I've been seeing this trend everywhere and I knew I had to try this out for myself. So today we're going to be creating this faux ceramic texture on some old vases I have, a candle, and a planter. Texture creates so much visual interest in any space, so adding this texture onto these pieces definitely does the trick. All the pieces we're creating today are dupes for things I've seen on Restoration Hardware, Crate and Barrel, Anthropology, so this will be an inexpensive option for you guys to do for your home. If you guys enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and comment below on your favorite project. Also subscribe if you want to stay notified on when my next video comes out. Alright, here are the DIYs. The supplies for these projects are pretty straightforward. We're just using acrylic paints in different colors, and the main supply that will give us our texture is baking soda. For this first project, we're going to create a dupe for these beautiful textured West Elm vases and planters. I have this unused planter that I've had for ages, and I'll be making over this smooth white planter into a matte textured planter. If you've used your planter before like I have, give it a clean before you start painting it. First, squeeze out lots of white acrylic paint. The West Elm vases aren't a stark white, so we'll create an off-white color. It's mainly white, so you just need a teeny tiny bit of the other colors to tint it. I used a very small dollop of black paint and put it on the edge. And then also add a very small dollop of ochre on the side as well. Slowly start mixing the colors on this side into the white paint until you get a very nice off-white color. Also, don't mind my hand, I got a ton of paint all over it and it took me ages to scrub it all off. Keep mixing the paint until it's one solid and consistent color. We'll be adding the baking soda next, and we'll see how the texture completely changes the look of this planter and adds so much dimension to the piece. So next comes the fun part, mixing the baking soda into the paint. The amount of baking soda you pour into the paint will determine how textured the paint will be. For this project, we want to create a lightly textured paint, so only a bit of baking soda will do. Make sure to mix the baking soda thoroughly. We just want it lightly textured, so make sure to break up any of the clumps you see until it's a smooth paste texture. It may take a while of mixing before you get all the clumps out, so just be patient with it. I didn't have a larger paintbrush, but if you have a larger brush, it would work well to get more paint on your planter at once. It'll just go a lot quicker. But if you have a smaller brush like me, no worries. Just make sure to paint the planter evenly so you can't see each individual brush stroke. Even it out if you see any visible brush strokes. Make sure you get the top edge of the planter too, so the smooth texture underneath won't be showing through. So it'll keep a consistent texture throughout. The nice thing about painting white paint on a white planter is that one layer will be enough to have an even coverage. You'll see in the later projects we'll need to do a couple layers to cover everything evenly. So make sure you paint this coat on evenly and thoroughly, and one coat will do. And there you have it, a beautiful West Elm inspired textured planter. For this next project, we're inspired by these etched planters from Restoration Hardware, but instead of revamping a planter again, we'll be reimagining a candle. I've burned quite a bit of this candle already, but when it's reached the end, I can freeze and scrape out any remaining wax and turn this into a planter later. Again, for this project, you'll need quite a bit of white acrylic paint. And just start with a small dollop of black, and you'll see how dark your gray turns out. Make sure you mix the color in thoroughly so there isn't a marbleized effect. We want a consistent looking color. I think mine turned into a nice mid-tone gray, so I poured in the baking soda next. I poured a bit more this time around into the paint because I wanted a thicker consistency. The Restoration Hardware planters had a horizontal edge pattern on them, so we'll be recreating that for this project too. Add a bit more baking soda if you need to, like I did. The thicker consistency will also help us with the etching. Once everything is completely mixed together, we'll start painting. As you can see, instead of creating paint strokes vertically, this time I'm painting it with horizontal brush strokes to follow the horizontal lines we'll be creating with the etching. Paint your entire piece completely, making sure the sides and the top rim are painted, and then we'll get to the etching part. For the etching, it's pretty straightforward. I just used a plastic fork, and while the paint is still wet, I started scraping horizontal lines into the paint, making sure to do this consistently along the whole candle holder. As you can see, the etching scratches off some of the paint, so you'll be able to see the glass underneath. So you'll need to do several coats of paint for this project. Also, when we do several coats of paint, we can play around with the shades of gray we use for each layer to create a more dimensional effect. So as you can see for this next layer, in addition to the black and white paint we used earlier, we're adding a bit of gold to the paint as well. It's a pretty matte gold, but it'll add a bit of warmth to the paint color and change the shade of gray a bit. You can already tell from this mixing that it's a warmer gray already. Again, we'll add in our baking soda into the paint again and mix it in well. Since our first layer is already so textured, the following layers can use less baking soda so it doesn't need to be as textured. Paint on the next layer, and make sure to focus on the areas where the glass was showing through before. You may need to do a couple more coats after this until it becomes completely covered. Make sure you get the top edge of the candle, and you're done! These mix of vases from Crate & Barrel are insanely cute, and I knew I had to create a dupe for them. I had some old vases that I messed up on doing a DIY, but kept anyway, so I figured a few coats of this thick textured paint and all will be forgiven. I had some leftover white paint from the first project, so I decided to use the rest of it for this project. The pros of these projects are that they're all trial and error, so you can play around with color and consistency and see how it all turns out. So we added in some teal to the white paint and mixed it all in. After it was mixed together, I thought it was too light and the color needed to be desaturated a little. So I added a bit more teal and a tiny bit of black to add a slight gray tone. Again, mix it until it's all a consistent color. I think this muted mint color looks really beautiful, so go ahead and paint your vase when you've created a color you like. I didn't add any additional baking soda to the paint since there was already some in the white paint when we first started. Like the first project, we don't want the strokes of the paintbrush to be super visible, so make sure you paint it evenly. This project will be more about the colors. For the next vase, we'll be using similar portions of white, black, and a color, and this time we're using blue. As always, mix it together evenly, and as we keep doing this, you'll see that we'll start getting a really beautiful muted blue. Next, it's time for the baking soda, and again, give it a good mix, and then it'll be ready for painting. Give it a good consistent paint, and definitely make sure every face of the vase is painted, especially the top since it'll be very visible. Give it a good first coat, and since I had a dark color underneath the blue and the green paint, both these vases needed a second coat to get an even, consistent coverage. Once you do that, you'll be done! Thank you so much for watching this video. I had so much much fun creating these projects, and I hope you guys enjoyed them too. It was just so fun to play around with the colors and textures for each project, and they all turned out super cool. Please like if you guys enjoyed this video, and subscribe if you want to see more of this kind of content. Alright, I'll see you guys next time. Bye!